Okay, so this next bit, we're going to import our actors. So we're going to go to Dashboard. We're going to go to Actor Types, which is up here. And we're going to click to create ourselves a new actor type. And we're just going to call this Piñata. And what's going to pop up is this view here, which is going to show you kind of your animations, essentially. We're going to click to add a new one. And we're going to click to add a frame to that animation. You've got the little warning sign, that's just an indication that there hasn't been a frame added yet. So let's click to add. Choose your image. Let's give it a second. Now we're going to go to Stencyl Resources, Images, Explosion Bunny. And before I import this, and it's something that you might want to keep in mind when you're loading your own projects, is your scale and resize method are probably going to be set to these two. And if that's the case, this object's going to come in at a very small size, and it's going to look awful. So set it to 1, set it to no smoothing. Then, what you want to do next is we need to divide this image up, because we don't want the two characters next to each other. So we're going to set the number of columns to 2, so for the 2 frames, and then we're going to click on the masking color, which should be white, and what that'll do is it'll get rid of all the white within the image. So then if we click Add, you've got this little character that's eyes are flickering away. What we're going to do next is we're going to duplicate him. So we'll have one animation that's going to be idle, and one animation that's going to be death. Well, it's pre-death, but let's call it pre-death. So then what you're going to want to do from here is delete the animation that's not relevant. Sorry, delete the frame of the animation that's not relevant. So that will be, for idle, it'll be kind of big pupils, and then for pre-death, it'll be kind of narrowing of the pupils. Okay. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to add our Piñata to the scene. So I'm going to put a bunch of them down. There we go. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to events, and I'm going to create myself an event. And now that event is going to be a when clicked on event, which will be under input when the mouse is clicked on actor. Now the reason we want that rather than click is if we just do it when it's clicked, it'll just remove all actors from the screen, which kind of removes half the fun of clicking each one. So by default it's going to be set to its kind of default settings, which is going to be entered and actor. We need to change that to self, and we need to change that to when pressed on. The reason we choose self is because we're within the Piñata. So this code is being applied to itself. Now what we want to do is go to the properties, and we want to kill the actor that this is within. So when mouse is pressed on self, kill self. So now, when we test the game, you should see this actor disappear. Now what we're going to want to do from here is make this a bit more of an interesting occurrence. So potentially have, us have it kind of expand and change colour. As you'll see, have particle effects burst out of it, a variety of different things. So if I just quickly test this, you can see each one disappears. Now if we want to add these effects to our character, the thing that we're going to need is a delay of maybe half a second or a very short period of time. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to find a piece of code that caters to that. The place we're going to find that would be under flow and under time. So after a certain amount of time. Keep in mind that you want to make sure that this piece of code is within this bracket, otherwise it won't run. Sorry, it will run, and it'll bypass the delay. It has to be within the bounds of the bracket, otherwise it'll just run as normal. So now after 0.5 seconds it'll kill itself. So now at this point, what I'm going to do is we're going to apply some basic effects to it. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to increase the size. We're going to use a tween. Now, tween is kind of like a term used in animation, which is to describe you know, when you have two states of something. So let's say you've got a character being on one side of the screen and another frame where it's on the other side of the screen. The tweening would be the animation in between those two states. So for this, it's going to be having the character in between being 100% scale and being 250% scale. We're going to do that over half a second, which is the length of time before the character disappears. And I'm going to apply a kind of transition effect, which is going to make it look quite nice and kind of have like a wobble effect almost as it disappears, or before it disappears. Let's give this a quick moment to test. Let's give this a go. There we go. Now you might notice that it gets quite blurry as it expands. The one way to combat that is to go to Settings, Advanced, and make sure anti-aliasing is off, and that will fix that problem. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let's spin our character. So let's kind of add like a twist as it spawns. So for that, I could just set a number, so like let's say 90 degrees. But the only issue with that is it'll just do the same thing every time. So for this, I'm going to use a random number. So a random number between -90 and 90 degrees. If you're wondering why I'm choosing these numbers, it's because usually if you imagine like a clock, or your angles on a circle, usually it's 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. In Stencyl, the way it works is that everything's shifted 90 degrees clockwise, so you have to factor that into all of your code. Now for this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't apply particularly because of the fact that it's spinning self by these angles rather than to these angles, which saves that being a problem. I'm also going to add the bounce out effect to these as well. Feel free to have an experiment with yourself in your own way. And yeah, we'll just give this a quick test. After this, what we'll do is we'll change the animation for our character, and what we'll also do is we'll change the color, and then I'll then move on to the next video and we'll cover particle effects in there. Let's give that a quick go. So you can also see that the characters are kind of bumping into each other slightly. So what I can do for that is I can disable the collision for the death character. Now the problem with this is that obviously my character isn't the death animation, so what I'm going to have to do is change the animation. The place I can find that is under Draw, and I can switch the animation to pre-death. And what I'm also going to do at the same time as that is I'm going to go to Effects, and I'm going to apply the effect hue change to self, the Piñata. Now, just one thing you might have noticed and be kind of confused about is why we haven't defined the animation for the idle character. The reason is because we've got this little star next to it, and that indicates that the idle animation is the first animation for your Piñata. So by doing that, it'll save you having to kind of having to set it when the Piñata is created. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a shortcut, a keyboard shortcut to kind of copy a piece of code over rather than having to recollect it. If I hold down Alt and click and drag, I can grab that piece of code and click and drag it into place. So I'm going to set that to a random number between 0 and 360, because if you imagine you've got your colour wheel, it's choosing a colour from that selection. So now, when I click on my Piñata, it should change colour, it should change animation, and it should spin and grow, all before disappearing. And once we've looked at this, that'll probably wrap it up for this video here, and then we'll move on to kind of particle effects and kind of tying up the last bits of the video, possibly talking about the ways that you can expand this and do other cool stuff with it. So you can see, oh, and let's test our key event. Yep, so pushing a key will reset it, and we're getting that very weird looking expansion of the character. So yeah, we'll leave it there just for now, and yeah, see you in the next video.